Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the In Off the Post podcast. On today's show, it's Bilic out and Moyes in. Hughes and Pulis, are they in peril? The Evra debacle, the seven-side derby, and we answer your questions for the first time ever. I'm your host, Daniel Bevan, and I'm here once again with the usual suspects, Ross Dawson.
Hello.
And Liam Thomas.
What's up?
And we start, as usual, with the results reaction and roundup with Ross.
Yeah, so starting off with Saturday's games. Not much happening on Saturday, to be fair. We'll start with Huddersfield 1, West Brom 0, Newcastle 0, AFC Bournemouth 1. Is it top 8 expectations from Newcastle fans? Quite
Probably
unrealistic.
dead now.
Yeah, probably dead now. Southampton 0, Burnley 1. Good result for Burnley. Swansea 0, Brighton 1. So the Swans are in further crisis. Stoke 2, Leicester 2. Good result for Leicester. Leicester seem to be on the comeback.
As I predict, Claude Puel already doing well.
We've seen a drastic increase in Mahrez's output as well.
He was brilliant on the weekend, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was brilliant again. Which leads us into our first topic of West Ham losing at home 4-1 to Liverpool.
And it was ultimately Bilic's demise, wasn't it? We've got Andy Tate on the line. He's going to tell us who's taking over. Andy, are you there?
I'm sorry to say again, it's Moyes.
There we go.
Thanks,
Right.
Andy. We've got the soundboard up and working now, so let us know how that turns out. I hope that it sounds good. We got many a dead meme to play for you over the course of this 2 hours. It's going to be a long show.
So yeah, Bilic finally sacked. It's taken long enough, I think, haven't it?
I don't know, why didn't he just walk? Did you see the post-match interview? I mean, I've never seen such a defeated man in my life.
We talked a couple of episodes back about the column that he posted on the West Ham official website declaring his dedication to West Ham, and we're surprised at the Brighton result that I think it followed suit. I'm surprised he was still in a job after that, if I'm honest. But well, he was some of our picks to be the next manager sacked, and it's hardly surprising to see that he is the next, given how much West Ham have underperformed this season. But
it's kind of weird, though, for me looking at it, because Bilic has the best points to game ratio of any West Ham manager in the Premier League, 1.33 for anyone who wants to know. So I don't understand why West Ham fans hated him so much. He brought them so much success.
I think they brought in a lot of success and they recruited well over the past couple of summers. But I still think that West Ham are a team that should be challenging for top 7 for sure. Because if you look at a couple of seasons back when Dimitri Payet was banging in 20-yard screamers every game, like it looked as if West Ham were going to crack the top 7.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't see why. I mean, they're an ambitious club. Some would say tin pot. But I think they definitely deserve a little bit of credit. Chicharito, although he's on crazy wages, was an impressive addition, wasn't it?
He was, yeah. But West Ham are currently 18th in the league at the moment with 9 points. So, but to be fair, the bottom 5 is really tight at the moment. Obviously, West Ham have got 9 points, and then Everton are 15th with 11. So that just proves how tight it is at the moment in the bottom end of the table.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it shows how poor they're doing. I mean, they got the joint second lowest goal difference, like -12 with Everton, and yet Everton have still got 2 points more than them. We know how poor Everton have been.
We'll get into Everton shortly, but let's just talk about the replacement that West Ham have in place. We woke up to the news that David Moyes has signed a 6-month contract with West Ham to become their manager.
It was only 6 months.
It was 6 months. That surely shows the ambition that West Ham and the expectations that they have.
They
for
just want
Moyes
to stay up, don't they? And I looked into this, and if he was still Man United manager, he would still have 1 year left on his contract that he initially signed.
That's mental.
A 6-year deal.
But still, I don't think it's a very good replacement for.
It's definitely not ambitious,
because Moyes, he obviously couldn't save Sunderland. He did really poorly at Sociedad as well. He obviously really underperformed at United. So I just think the nature, the length of the contract as well shows a real lack of ambition for West Ham, because it just shows that they want a short-term fix, and that I just think it's such a cop-out.
I'm interested to see the details on the contract, whether there's a sort of, if he keeps them up, sort of fee.
Well, I do think it's smart business on West Ham's
before.
behalf, though, to get him on a 6-month contract, because otherwise, if he does underperform and you get him on a 3-year contract, you've obviously got to pay out his wages if you want to get rid of him.
In a way, it is kind of clever, but it just shows that all they want is to stay up this year. They've written off this year already, and I mean, they wanted, Michy Batshuayi a couple of years ago, and there were rumours that they wanted him on loan.
And Lacazette.
And Lacazette,
And Giroud in the summer as well.
Which would have been a good sign.
That would have been crazy. I think that even if you're just writing off this season and you want to try and recruit somebody in the summer, like maybe Carlo Ancelotti, who has said that he doesn't want to manage anyone until next year now.
But do you think the West Ham is too small of a club for Ancelotti, or do you think that you'll be open to the challenge?
I think Ancelotti should go to Everton. I really do, to be honest.
We've got a fan question coming up about who we should go into Everton, so I don't want to talk about too many replacements for Everton, but
I think it's hard for West Ham because they sort of had that platform when they had Payet, and they sort of, their ambitions changed, I think, as a team. And that's when they started, potentially trying to sign Lacazette and
they had
some of the other players.
Sorry, they had that last season at the Bowling Ground, didn't they? And
that was a great season.
They played so well. I was really impressed.
Well, I think it was the final game at the Bowling Ground, and I think they beat United, didn't they, or did they lose to United? I can't remember.
I can't even think that far back.
No, I can't remember either way. I think it was a 3-1, but I can't remember what way. Anyway, what's going to be an interesting topic and an interesting debate is who is going to replace Everton and West Ham in like the top 8, top 7 like teams at the moment, because obviously at the moment you've got Burnley, who I think are in 7th place. Let me just get the table up on my phone.
I think I got it here. Burnley are in 7th.
Burnley are 7th, Arsenal in 6th, Brighton in 8th, and Watford in 9th.
Brighton are in 8th.
I know.
Brighton are in 8th.
I missed that.
But
my God,
bear in mind that, like I said, from 9th below in the table, it's really tight. So West Ham are in 18th on 9 points, and Brighton are on 15 points. So a run of bad form can totally turn the table on its head. But yeah, I think it would be who do you think would replace Everton and West Ham at the moment in the top 7?
I think Newcastle and Burnley for me. I know Newcastle lost, and it was going to be a topic until you lot put in your questions and completely rewrote the show for us. I appreciate that. I know they lost to Bournemouth, and it was a bit of a daylight robbery, in fairness. However, they've been playing some really good football. That Spanish kid who's on loan from Dortmund, whose name slips my mind. Is it Moreno, something like that?
Probably.
He's been unbelievable. I think he's been their best player for sure. And they've got goals in their team. I know Dwight Gale hasn't scored yet this season, but Joselu for some reason has started popping up with a couple. Jose Perez is still a good player, and Burnley's just the Sean Dyche effect. He's got a consistent goal scorer in Chris Wood. Sam Vokes is playing really well as well. I just don't see why either of them couldn't push for the top 8.
It's a great turnaround though, because I remember last season and the season before that, Burnley were a side that everyone pipped to go down.
But they didn't lose at home.
No.
And now they're starting to play more attacking away from home, and that's been their difference. That's what really turned their season on its head.
I think a huge factor for most of these teams will come in the January transfer window, whether they choose to invest or not. I think you'll really see whether they're going to push for those places.
Yeah, because bear in mind, Burnley lost Andre Gray and Michael Keane.
Yeah.
They were their two best players last year, and they've recruited really, really well. I don't even think they bought a new centre-back. I think the guy who was on the bench, Trichovsky, I think so. He's the one who's popped up and started getting the goals. Defending the goals. A couple episodes ago, I couldn't remember who played beside Ben Mee, because I thought, who would be playing? Be him and Michael Keane, but I couldn't remember them signing anyone, and they didn't. It was him.
So how do you think West Ham should recruit? Like, what names do you think Moyes is going to get in January? Other than probably
Marouane Chamakh.
Probably other than Adnan Januzaj. Moyes will bring him in for probably the 3rd club now that he's managed. Anyway.
Victor Anichebe, for sure. He's a big fan. West Ham have been needing a striker for a while, so I'm sure Victor Anichebe will do really, really well for them.
Anyway, so this leads
Harry
us...
Kane.
Harry Kane, Jesus. Anyway, this leads us into the biggest, well, where most of the action was this weekend, Super Sunday, and as opposed to last week, this actually seemed like a Super Sunday, didn't it?
I know, it was great.
It was great. So we'll start off Spurs winning at Wembley again, 1-0 to Crystal Palace. Quite a tame display from Spurs, but I think it was quite dominant. Obviously, they had both Michel Vorm and Hugo Lloris out, so the third choice goalkeeper, forgot his name.
Gazaniga.
Should know his name.
Anyway,
my haircut's now inspired by him, not that you can see this.
No, he had a really good game, to be fair. Kept them in it, made a lot of good saves. But we'll go into Everton 3, Watford 2, the comeback of dreams for Everton. It couldn't have come at a better time, really, could it?
No, and the best part is that I absolutely slated David Unsworth last week, and I said that he didn't know anything about tactics. He's probably a good coach, but maybe not a great manager. And then he made some changes, I think it was at half-time, and completely won them the game.
Well, going into the game, I got a fun stat for you. Everton had lost 3 games in all competitions since sacking Ronald Koeman and appointing Unsworth. Hang on.
That's a good stat.
There we go.
Thank you.
So that was just it was just mad. So Richarlison got his 4th goal of the season to open the scoring. I know you rate Richarlison really highly.
Sorry, just to quickly throw in, if he starts capitalising on these missed opportunities, then there's no reason why they can't go for those top 8 places. So
Kabasele got a header from a corner in the 64th minute to make it 2-0. Niasse got in the 67th minute to make it 2-1. Brought it back for Everton. It was quite a messy goal, though. He literally got tackled into the goal. Dominic Calvert-Lewin came on for Rooney and then scored heads in a corner to equal the score, to make it 2-2.
Is it right? Am I right in saying he's only the 3rd goal scorer in the league for Everton this season?
I was about to say it was only Rooney and Niasse when they played against us.
Yeah,
so
well, there we are then, yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me. I don't know why he doesn't start anyway, Calvert-Lewin. I mean, he's dangerous against us. So.
Yeah, he's a good player.
But then Watford conceded a penalty. Holebas, have any of you seen the replay of that? He literally slips and absolutely takes out Aaron.
It was really unfortunate.
It was brilliant, though, but it was an unfortunate penalty.
Feel for him.
So then Leighton Baines slotted that penalty home to make it 3-2 to complete the comeback. But did you see the amount of added time there was in the game?
Yeah.
12 minutes.
I was about to say 10.
12 minutes of added
12
time.
12 minutes?
Yeah, because it was probably partly due to Aurelio Gomez going off injured. He had quite a nasty head injury.
Okay.
Yeah, he did.
But hope Gomez gets well soon. But Watford are going to be kicking themselves because Tom Cleverley missed a penalty in the 100th minute after I can't remember who it was, but Pickford fouled one of the players in the box, and Tom Cleverley absolutely squandered the chance.
This was the best game of Super Sunday, and it wasn't even on telly.
I was watching the replays on Match of the Day. It was just a mad game.
It kicked off the same time as United Chelsea. I would have wanted to watch this instead, to be perfectly honest. I knew that was going to be a boring game. I wanted to watch mediocrity versus Everton.
But yeah, anyway, so it was a really good result for Everton. Hopefully that can get them the confidence back. But there's still I don't know the starting 11 off by heart, but I'm pretty sure Ross Barkley's still out injured. I think Klaassen didn't play. Gylfi Sigurdsson started, but Kevin Morales I don't think started either. Aaron Lennon I think maybe came on as a substitute.
Yeah,
I think
front 3 of Sigurdsson, Niasse, Rooney.
Yeah,
and then behind them was.
Yeah, I think Aaron Lennon came on for Sigurdsson.
Yeah,
and then won the penalty. So this just.
I mean, that front 3, Sigurdsson and Rooney.
No pace.
You would not be worried as a fullback.
But that just brings us back to the point that we made a couple of episodes ago about Everton needing pace. I think it was last episode, wasn't it? Cause
it was the episode before last, because then David Unsworth, we all know, is a fan of the show because he started them both against Leicester. They lost, but there
have been rumours of Kevin Morales going to West Ham now.
Oh, is that? I have not seen that.
Well,
it seems like a very David Moyes signing, to be fair.
That would be a good signing, I think.
Yeah.
I think it would be a good signing.
Morales wasn't even in the side.
No. Well, we've talked about his sort of falling out with Everton and the club, but imagine an Arnautovic and Kevin Morales wing combination.
Because Kevin Morales has been there for years.
Yeah. He has, yeah.
I can't think of him actually playing at another club.
Olympiacos he came for.
Oh, I don't watch the Greek league.
I don't either, but I just know that fact. But yeah, because I remember a couple of seasons ago he had a really good partnership with Lukaku. Because it was like the Belgian dream.
Since he's been there, I think, wasn't it Aidan McGeady went there and
left,
he did.
And
he's still just, I'm here, guys.
Well, Aidan McGeady's at Sunderland now.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Speaking of Sunderland, I did want to mention them when we talk about Cardiff later, but they are bottom of the Championship now.
Yeah.
And I'm desperately trying to find a tweet. I know I tweeted it about a year ago that said that if Sunderland aren't careful, they're going to get relegated again. And I genuinely think they will this year now. And I tell you what, that would be amazing if I could find that.
Did you see there was a tweet about their form? The different colours.
It was Starburst.
If it was a Starburst, it'd be quite, because it was dominated by like reds and oranges and stuff like that.
But then there was one win. There was one green. I think the lime Starbursts are criminally underrated, personally.
Ooh, that's another
new topic.
Top 5.
Top 5 Starburst,
please. But anyway, so which brings us into the next game, which was we'll make this brief. Chelsea won, Man United 0. Not much really to talk about with this game, was there, lads? I'm joking. So N'Golo Kante made his return to the Chelsea squad, and Andreas Christensen replaced David Luiz, who allegedly have fallen out with Conte after their defeat to Roma in the week.
Said it was
he questioned his tactics. Yeah.
I mean, you can do all the tactics you want, but when you've got 3 men marking Edin Dzeko when he's running down the wing, you've got issues. That was crazy.
We'll get on to poor defensive positioning shortly.
Please do.
With the Morata goal. But anyway, did any of you see the Phil Jones own goal that was disallowed?
I did.
It was a quality finish.
I didn't see much in it.
No.
I don't know.
Well, if you look at the replays, he was clearly pushed by Morata.
I don't know. In
But
the
I mean,
replay, he doesn't extend his arm. His arm never fully does the push in actual motion.
It's good to see Morata. He's like clearly making himself a nuisance.
Well, after that, he's
he seems so far to be the perfect mix of Diego Costa and Fernando Torres at the moment. With
for high praise then.
With added heading ability, of course. Bakayoko missed a lot of chances as well.
And he's changed his hair again. I'm gonna have to ask the Chelsea fans again what came first. He clearly matches the kit, obviously, but yeah, he did miss it.
He missed loads of chances. It just makes it I know he played.
He played in the Aaron Ramsey role that he played for Wales.
He got forward so much.
He was playing really well.
Found the positions.
Who were they playing? I think it was against Watford, where he found himself in the attacking third, and he just nodded that ball. And I thought, you know what, he should play further up the field. Didn't say anything, and then he did. So Conte's in my mind clearly.
He's like a Fellaini with worse finishing. That's a joke, by the way. I do rate Bakayoko quite highly, but
we weren't thinking you were serious.
Well, but he just showed that his finishing was quite poor in that match. I thought, well, we all know his shooting stats on FIFA are not the greatest, but now I can see why. Anyway, so Thibaut Courtois powered away one of United's best chances after Lukaku tried to kill it in the bottom corner from outside the box. It was a great save, but also I think it was a decent effort from Lukaku. He seemed, in the early stages, Lukaku seemed to want to win. He was very lively. He was very running into space to get the ball, running off of players. I thought it was a positive opening period for United. But it just went all downhill from there, which leads us into the goal. It was a great cross from Azpilicueta and a world-class header from Morata to give Chelsea the only goal of the game and the win. But it was really, really poor positioning on the Manchester United defenders' behalf. When I saw a replay of the goal, I initially thought, well, where were the defenders? Because Morata just seems to run straight through the defence, straight through the middle, and then I saw the replays and the slow-mos of what the United players were doing, and I honestly don't know.
They didn't know what to do with it.
Phil Jones was trying to mark 2 players out on the left, and then Eric Bailly and Tony Valencia were on the other side of the box, marking 2 players that were really tight together. I can't remember who they were marking, but then that just allowed for Morata to just sprint through the middle.
What a header, though.
It was a quality header. I now see why you think he is the best header of the ball in the world.
I think Azpilicueta has 5 assists now, and I think all of them from Morata goals, I believe.
He's definitely
something like that.
Been doing that.
Incredible.
But it's... excuse me. Gosh, I was going to make a good point then, but...
you lost it.
I lost it, yeah. It went away in the cough. No, what I was going to say was that... Were Man United really a victim of their own tactics, though? Because if you don't go and try and win a game like that, then how can you be ambitious for the title?
It's just the Mourinho way of doing tactics. I was talking to you boys before we started recording. Sorry, that Mourinho has had these tactics for years on end now. So the fact that United fans are annoyed at him for implementing those tactics is quite.
It's definitely not a new thing.
It's not a new thing, but it is frustrating, and I can see why some fans are getting annoyed. But I do think that. Well, there's a philosophy that the best kind of defence is a good offence, and I agree with that philosophy in terms of the tactics that United should play, but we are really missing some of our key players at the moment, such as Ibrahimovic and Pogba. I've got some stats for you that, so far. So Man United this season, chances per game with Pogba, nearly 15, without 7. Big chances per game, 3 with Pogba and without 1.6. And goals per game with Pogba, 3 and without 1.6 as well. So I don't think the stats lie. There's a real lack of creativity in our midfield. And I think I mentioned it last week. You can't expect much to come out of your midfield when you're playing Herrera and Matic.
It's just, I think there's a lack of drive. I think they looked at match of the day that Lukaku's having to come out of the box to create an opportunity for himself when effectively you want him in the box.
Well, he's even though he's our striker, he's been one of our best playmakers in the final third this season. I don't know where Mkhitaryan's gone for the past couple of games. He hasn't. He made a couple of decent passes and some decent chances, but he hasn't been doing much at all in the last couple of games.
He started last season off. Was it 5 or 6 games he didn't play?
It was probably more than that. It's the Manchester derby towards the beginning of the season. He played really, really poorly, I think. Or it was the Arsenal game. Anyway, so then Mourinho benched him for a solid 2 or 3 months.
But then he came back, he played incredibly well, and it's almost like he needs that again, because I know a lot of Man United fans would kill right now to see a front three of Lukaku, Rashford, and Mkhitaryan. Sorry, and Martial.
Well, that was gonna take me into my next point why don't Martial and Rashford start at the same time. We all know how effective either one of them is coming off the bench and running at tired defenders, and I still think Rashford is best at doing that, because I still think Martial is a head above Rashford in terms of his ability on the ball, his finishing, his composure. I think he is one of our most composed players in the final third. And in terms of that 3 behind the striker with a Mkhitaryan, Martial and Rashford or Mata or whoever interchanges in that area of the field, I still think Martial has been our best player so far this season in that area, because he does create a lot of chances. He's got a lot of ability on the ball. And to be fair, Mkhitaryan's been poor, Rashford's been decent, but I just really want to see Rashford and Martial starting at the same time, because I don't think, unless Martial's played out wide and Rashford's played through the middle, I don't think they have so far.
Because the reason I bring up Mourinho's tactics is because I found this good stat. It was Mourinho in his last 10 games against top 6 opponents had got no wins and 1 goal. That's a good stat. Thank you, me.
It's sort of the Arsenal way when you read that stat. It's sort of what we've become used to over the past years, and you seem to be struggling with it now.
Yeah, but positives to take from United. Matic had a decent game. De Gea also made a couple of decent saves, but other than that, in terms of attacking threats, there wasn't many, apart from a few chances that Lukaku has created. But now Lukaku is 7 games without a goal.
I think it's so obvious his kind of when a team doesn't rely on Lukaku, and I'm looking at Belgium now. You know, Belgium don't rely on him for goals, and he hasn't got an amazing goal to game ratio for Belgium. And then you see him against Everton, when he's playing for Everton, that he's their only attacking threat for many a time. So you can imagine genuinely that he's used to having these teams play off of him, and because Man United aren't going to do that, they've got goals with Rashford and Martial and Mkhitaryan and Pogba when he's fit, that you don't need Lukaku to be your main man, and that's what he's struggling with right now.
But a fun fact is that Lukaku's still 4th in terms of top goal scorers with 7, even though he hasn't scored in 7 games, but he is equal on goals to Morata and Gabriel Jesus.
The only thing is, I can throw with you a stat off the top of my head. Lukaku has played every minute Gabriel Jesus has only played 600 minutes.
Oh wow!
So
Don't
That's
a good stat. No, that's going to become far too overused. Because later on, I've got an amazing one, and we should have had that's an amazing stat instead because it's so much better.
But anyway, it's a disappointing result for United because I can't say that I'm surprised because our attacking United haven't been fun to watch in the last couple of weeks, and I know that's a really broad statement and a lot of people have said it, but compared to the beginning of the season, we're not playing good football at all. I mean, we struggled to beat Benfica. The first leg against Benfica, it was a lucky goal from Rashford. It was like a free kick because I remember
the goalkeeper was crying.
Svila, yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember. But
Man United don't really have a rich history of playing attractive football. I'm looking at Ferguson. He didn't play amazing football. He just did what he needed to win, and he won a lot. And I think that if Man United were 8 points clear of Man City right now, there wouldn't be a peep from anyone about how boring football is.
We're still second place. We're equal on points with Tottenham now after the loss against Chelsea, but we're still in second place. It's not like we're 6th or 7th or anything like that. So,
let's be honest. If Man City weren't being, literally the best team in Premier League history right now, you would be up there.
Exactly. So, I've said for the last couple of weeks that United have played well. Before the last couple of results, United have played well, but the only thing that's keeping us from being top of the league or being tied first is how good Man City have been.
Dropping 2 points all season.
Yeah. Well,
crazy.
United now on, I think it's 2 losses so far.
Before we go on to Man City, and we will get on to Man City and Arsenal, with quick mention for Chelsea. And are they a club in crisis at the moment behind the scenes? Because the press will have you believe that they are.
I think
many
I don't want to say
signs.
crisis, but there's something not wrong. Sorry, something not right at the club.
Yeah, Conte never seems content, does he? Wherever he's gone, whether it was Bari or the Italian national team or Juventus, he never seems to settle. It's a very odd trait of his.
I just don't get why players are falling out with him. He won the league with them.
He recreated Victor Moses' career.
Mm.
I don't care what anybody says. He would be in the Championship now if it wasn't for Conte. But then we had the news yesterday that Michael Emenolo, I think that's how you said it.
Emeno,
who was a director at the club, a technical director, had left after a massive bust-up with allegedly Abramovich over Conte and his tactics. And he'd been with the club for and seen so many managers come and go over the last 10 years. You think that surely this must have been a big deal.
It must.
You think the number of managers he's gone through in the last 10 years, Abramovich, and this was Conte is the one that Michael's having an issue with. Yeah, it must have been a big deal. Either way, I wanted to raise that point. Liam.
Oh dear.
What happened on the weekend, mate?
Man City won 3-1 against Arsenal.
Oh,
that's what happened.
Moving on.
Thanks, Ross.
No, I said to you guys before the match, obviously it was a very questionable lineup. Putting Sanchez up front.
Coquelin starting as a central centre back. What
backfired?
What was the logic behind that?
I think he finished the game with about 60% pass accuracy, which really cost us.
For a defender as well, most centre backs just pass it to the
no
Lacazette.
Lacazette has only finished 90 minutes once, right? And that was against Leicester at the first game of the season. Obviously throw some stats away, we won't need the soundboard for these, but Lacazette has scored 33% of our goals. Other players in the league who are similar to this, Lukaku has contributed 32.8% of yours, and Salah has contributed 33% like him, and they start every game, without a doubt.
Yeah.
So okay.
Well, Lacazette is on 6 league goals now, so I think he's well within the top 10 in terms of goal scorers. He's only 2 behind Harry Kane and Aguero. So if he gets a run of starts together, then he can easily contend
not
for the
only a
Golden
run
Boot.
Of starts, but a run of starts in a similar position.
Because
again, against Man City, we brought Giroud on, and then he got moved onto the.
We talked about after the 5-2 win against Everton that Lacazette is on Sanchez. That was the first game that they've started together, and Arsenal won that game 5-2. like, that's not a coincidence. So surely Arsene Wenger could see that, oh, my 3 best players starting together in attack, who knew that could produce goals?
Because I said to you, against this Manchester City team, it was always going to be who could outscore the other. They're going to score goals against you. It's inevitable. Just a question of whether we could score more goals than them.
Spoiler alert, you didn't.
I know. We came close. I mean, 2-1 down. We sort of robbed of our momentum by a poor decision, which obviously Wenger has clung to. I was going to say,
this game, for me, cements Wenger's sort of lack of ambition in his latter stages of his career.
Well,
he's not, like, he's just making questionable managerial decisions week in, week out for Arsenal now. Like, every week, as soon as the starting 11 is announced, there's always an uproar with Arsenal fans about who's starting and who's not.
Oh, there's something, we see that lineup as Arsenal fans, and you can already pick something from that lineup that you can scrutinise after the game, because there's a good chance of it backfiring.
I would normally say that that's just fans being fans, but to be fair, almost all of you have got a point. I genuinely see it.
What did I say to you before kick-off? I said Ramsey and Ozil on the same side is worrying, because Ramsey goes wandering and Ozil lacks the drive to get back. And then that first goal, De Bruyne, Cech makes a save, Sané has it on the wing, plays it to De Bruyne on the edge of the box, and he plays the easiest 1-2 you'll ever see.
But it was a great finish from De Bruyne,
but
across the keeper on his left foot from outside the box. It was a great finish.
He just walked past Ozil and Ramsey. I mean, it's just pathetic, really.
I mean, you can't play them on the same side because the defensive output is so poor. I saw a lot of people comparing De Bruyne and Ozil this week about their assists and how creative they are, but the difference between those two is that De Bruyne's defensive capability is so criminally underrated and it's so good,
and then Ozil's is non-existent.
It doesn't. Yeah, you're right. It does not exist.
He has a problem because when he put that Facebook post up a few months back saying that he'd been at the club for however many years, celebrating it like that was something to be happy about. He said that, I know people criticise my work rate, and it's like, well, if he sees that himself, why is he not, trying to rectify it? But anyway, obviously we ended up 2-1 down, and then that really poor decision. I mean, he's clearly offside. He's got
the silver.
Yeah, two of them are
offside.
But then again, they tell you to play to the whistle, and I mean, our players were just stood there flagging down some imaginary bus, which never turned up, and then he just slotted it in, and that was it.
But in the early stages, I know I tweeted something similar, but Sanchez was the only player who seemed like he wanted to win for Arsenal. You could see, and in terms of tactics as well, Arsenal tried to play a really high press.
We tried to team press with that team.
It didn't come off at all because they were pressing at the wrong times. They weren't pressing together, and you could physically see Alexis Sanchez getting frustrated with how poor Arsenal were pressing.
Well, the problem with that formation is if you had the two sets of three, obviously the midfield one and the forwards, and once they get past that first line, I mean that three behind them, it doesn't really stand a chance against that Manchester City attack. So. But again, in the current climate of our team, we expected, I think, to lose this game, and we're not going to challenge for the league. And I suppose we put a good effort in, but I mean, Wenger clung to the decisions, which he does, and doesn't really take responsibility for the team. But hey,
Wenger in. Is she mad?
Yep.
Yes, she is.
She is.
But Man City have now scored 18 goals more than Derby managed in the 07-08 season, where they had, it's the worst
12,
it's November.
And it is November.
Blimey.
18. It's crazy. Man City are the most free-scoring team I've seen in
It's
ever.
crazy. Like I said to you, that stat about Gabriel Jesus, I think it's him and Aguero have only played 605 minutes each, I think, when I checked, compared to, obviously, players who are like Lukaku, who have played 990.
Think of the time out that Aguero had when obviously he had that injury in a car in the car crash.
Yeah, of course.
And
well,
he's still on 8 goals this season, which is tied first. So,
and we've been raving about Harry Kane for so long.
I know. But anyway, did any of you see the disallowed goal as well? Edison I failed to catch the ball.
Slightly annoyed about that.
And then Ramsey just tackled him into the goal.
He could have potentially just nudged him in. I honestly
but
think
he absolutely obliterated Edison. But at the end of the day, it was two debatable referee decisions. That led to the two City's goals. But City still dominated the game. I mean, Raheem Sterling missed so many chances as well in the first half and the second half. He missed there was that. You tried to overplay the ball. I remember you tried to cut it back to Sane, and then it was just a really poor pass. He should have maybe just shot it across the keeper or something like that. But end of the day, Man City won.
It was a convincing win.
It was a convincing win. It could have been more potentially, but does this show a lack of? I know it shows a lack of ambition from Wenger, but in terms of comparing it to people's criticisms of United's style of playing big games, who do you think shows more ambition towards big games, Arsene Wenger or Jose Mourinho? Because I know at least Wenger still tries to implement new tactics like the high press, even though the players didn't do that well at all. They were either all going towards one player or only one going leaving holes open, because City were playing them around the park on the high press. They were just
have you seen the clip of David Silva when he dribbles in a complete circle and just no one gets near him?
He was just making the Arsenal players look like mugs on the high press. But anyway,
Pep Guardiola talking about Arsene Wenger was probably my favourite thing of the weekend. Where he said, "The penalty was a penalty. The offside was offside. We won because we're better." It's so true. It is true. But you can. Wenger being Wenger, obviously. I did not see it. He fixated on those 2 points of one of the goals was offside and the other was,
which was offside, but he clearly hasn't drilled it into them to play to the whistle, considering the whole team pretty much stopped dead. Yeah. So actually, scratch that. It was my second favourite thing of the weekend, because my favourite thing of the weekend was one of the pundits on Sky Sports saying that there aren't 10 Premier League wingers. So Matt Ritchie, Christian Atsu, Sadio Mane, Raheem Sterling, Mohamed Salah, Wilfred Zaha, Andre Guerrero, Leroy Sané, Eden Hazard, and Pedro. There you are. There's 10. Why did he say that? I don't know. It was a really odd statement. He was talking about wing backs and like inverted wingers, and it's like that just makes no sense whatsoever.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure City alone have probably got 10 wingers or 10 players who can play on the wing.
Club.
They just got one in like a locker. They got Bernardo Silva tucked away. He does the tea at the moment, but he can play if he wants to.
Anyway, that concludes this week's results and roundup, which leads us on to one of our first debates. Tony Pulis and Mark Hughes, under pressure at their clubs, obviously with West Brom and Stoke, could either go to Wales, and which would you prefer to see at Wales, or which one can you see going first?
I would take either of them. I think that I want to put that out there straight away, is that I've always been a critic of Chris Coleman, and don't get me wrong, what he did with Wales was amazing, but this campaign for the World Cup qualifiers, he got everything so wrong tactically. But we've talked about that. Go and listen to previous shows if you want to hear rip him.
Well, there's a question about Wales coming up later in the fan questions, and I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about the starting 11 decisions and decisions to not play young players. But we'll get on to that.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. In answer to your question, though, who I would prefer, I think Pulis.
Yeah, I think I would as well.
Yeah, I know that people complain about his tactics, and the Cardiff fans want to deny it all they want, but it's so true. There was a time where Pulis didn't have a club, and we needed a manager, and they were calling on him. He's a Newport boy. He's a Cardiff fan when he was growing up. Look, it was written in the stars at the time, and it never happened. Probably for the better. But what I'm saying is that if he gets you results, you will not care about the football he plays. And we've got Sam Vokes and Gareth Bale to play up front, and he will work wonders with the both of them.
The only problem I have with that is that sort of when we did do so well in the tournament before last, obviously a lot of the results did come about with that sort of football, and you sort of think with the team we have now, maybe we can change. We don't need to resort to the sort of Pulis way.
But I mean, I would argue that the Wales team at the moment is so one-dimensional that we are built to play the way that what's his name, Chris Coleman wants to play. I forgot his name for a sec. James Chester's not tall enough to play as a centre back in a 4-back formation.
No.
And Ben Davies is at the moment playing too well at wing back to really think. Would you want to put him as a proper left back? He's been brilliant this season for Spurs.
Yeah, true. But
What do you think, Ross?
well, just to put it into perspective, West Brom currently sitting 16th with 10 points, and Stoke currently sitting 14th with 12. But in terms of underperforming sides, I still think Stoke is up there with some of the most underperforming at the moment, because we've mentioned it on the show before. I think this squad is so good on paper, but they just, I'm not too sure. To answer your question, I'd like to see Mark Hughes as manager, because I know you agree that some of the tactics that Pulis implements would be good for, would suit the Wales team. But I would just like to see Mark Hughes in charge of Wales. He's had a decent track record in terms of his managerial posts. I mean, he did quite well at Man City.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Hughes has managed Wales before. It was before he kind of broke out in the way that he did. And so you can argue that he's got unfinished business, but you could also argue it's taking a step back for the Wales national team.
I'd agree that I'd argue that Tony Pulis being appointed the Wales manager would be a step backwards.
Of course. Then are we being too narrow-minded? Are we thinking that only appointing a Welsh manager is a bad thing? Maybe we should be looking at somebody else.
Well, I think that's unlikely that they'll do that, just because I think a big philosophy with Wales and their managers is that they need to be Welsh just to. I'm not too sure, but you've seen it. Well, there was Gary Speed, obviously, who's unfortunately passed away, but going into Chris Coleman, and I think was it John Toshak before Gary Speed?
Yes, I think it was.
Yeah. So, I think we're not being narrow-minded with only going for Welsh managers, because if you look at England's track record, other than Fabio Capello and Sven-Goran Eriksson in the last decade or so, I think most of their managers have been English as well. But that's, in terms of English managers, we also are going to talk about that later on as well.
Yeah, and say a bit less about Wales. What is going wrong for Tony Pulis, do you reckon? I mean, they're only 1 point above the relegation zone, and their 2 wins were at both the games at the start of the season.
If I'm not mistaken, West Brom had a decent season last year. Where did they finish in the season last year? Hang on,
someone to check.
I'm checking now. Some of you talk.
Just for a stat check. Earlier we said that John Toshak was Wales manager before Gary Speed. He was, but Brian Flynn came in and had a 2-game spell. I assume that was as caretaker. I don't actually remember that. It's in 2010.
But in terms of West Brom, they've got Chelsea and Tottenham up next, which you can't see them winning. But then after that, there might be a silver lining, because they have Newcastle, Crystal Palace and Swansea. So if they are going to get back on track, you'd hope it'd be against those 3 teams.
But I've said it before that if we've got our heart set on Welsh managers and we're looking at Hughes and Pulis as Premier League pedigree and thinking they're going to be great, and we'll always end up with Kit Simons or Paul Trollope. It's I sometimes feel like keeping an English manager managing England, or a Welsh manager managing Wales is narrow-minded, but oftentimes it just works. They understand the manager a little bit more, and they also they get the fans better. It's a better appointment for the fans, but maybe not on the pitch.
Just going back to my point of where West Brom finished last season, they did finish 10th, which I mean isn't bad compared to where they are now, and I think they did have a good beginning to the season. So,
but nobody expected them to finish that highly. It's
still
top half.
Still top half. Anyway,
let's move on.
Yeah, we'll move on to the next subject, which is quite an interesting one. Obviously, the debacle with Patrice Evra. So I'll just list the chronology of the events. So, in the run-up to the game, Evra was named as a substitute. He began warming up with his teammates before the game. The left-back appeared to be the target of songs and abuse from the crowd for about 30 minutes, and I think it was the Marseille fans.
It was.
They were hurling abuse at him. So Evra approaches the Marseille fans. He volleys the ball into the crowd. Some of his teammates come over to calm him down. Evra then climbs over the billboards to confront the spectators who have come towards the front of the stand. He returns to the pitch, but a group of fans approach the billboards, and Evra appears to kick one of them in the head. Evra is led away to the substitute bench but is sent off by the referee before the game and watches the game from the stands. So Evra was initially suspended by Marseille, but I think he was now being released by the club.
I think that's true. There's a lot of wishy-washy reports on this.
It has been for the past couple of days. Sorry, the UEFA announced on Friday that Evra would miss at least one match following his red card against Vitoria, with the organisation's disciplinary body set to discuss his case at its next meeting on November 10th. But then a statement from Marseille earlier this week said, from the president of Marseille, he met Patrice Evra and informed him of his layoff with immediate effect and his summons to an interview prior to possible disciplinary sanction. So ahead of Marseille's next game, that they won 5-0. Some Marseille fans held up banners criticising the ex-Manchester United defender with messages such as "Ever go away, respect supporters, and we do not want you in our colours."
Some were slightly more explicit.
I was about to say without the profanity,
yeah,
definitely.
I'll leave that out. But then Evra took to Instagram, posting a picture congratulating his teammates and thanking real Marseille fans. So it's quite a confusing area at the moment.
As soon as the video came out, it was going around on Twitter, and I saw it, and I immediately thought, with no context, what is he doing?
I didn't think it could be Evra. I mean, obviously he's built up quite a following with
he's
some of his videos and that.
I love this game.
Yeah,
I mean, even when he posted the photo thanking the real Marseille fans and congratulating the team, he put hashtag "I love this game" and hashtag "Be a Panda." Be a Panda, obviously being his initiative that supports the equality of races in football, and then
and also a song by Designer.
but yeah, I don't know what's going on at the moment, because there's so many reports saying that he's just been banned or suspended, but there's conflicting reports that he is being released by the club, so I just don't know what to believe at the moment.
I think eventually it'll all come out. I mean, it's really obvious to see what happened, because we can see what happened. It was filmed, and he clearly assaulted a fan. Now, I don't know how long, I probably can Google this, how long Eric Cantona was banned for, but it was very, very reminiscent, wasn't it?
Did any of the reports say what they were chanting, though?
I'm not too sure. I
haven't seen anything about it.
I haven't seen anything, but it must have been bad, because Patrice Evra, I know he's got quite a short fuse on the pitch. We saw with the whole, well, it was the shocking events with Suarez on the pitch, how he has quite a short fuse if he does get abuse hurled at him. So that, just on that fact alone, I think that something must have gone down for Evra to react like that.
But if he is released, would you? I think you did tweet that you'd maybe take him back. Do you stand by that?
I obviously his actions of assaulting fans are inexcusable. Just putting that out there.
Cantona was banned for 9 months, by the way, and he was
Oh
also
my
criminally
goodness.
charged.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Anyway, I purely because I think that our left back crisis at the moment is quite strong. I would accept Evra back at United, probably on like a 6-month contract or something like that, to see out the rest of the season.
I can see him going to West Ham. I don't know why.
I guess so, but I mean, obviously his actions are inexcusable, and I wouldn't appreciate him. Well, it's quite similar to the Naby Keita situation when he was like fighting with his teammates and stuff like that. I posted a tweet saying that, is this the kind of player that Liverpool fans want at their club?
And what were the friendly responses that you received?
You can imagine the friendly responses that I've got. Obviously, they went slow to point out the fact that I was a United fan. So, but
because you're a journalist, obviously you're not allowed to have opinions whatsoever, and you need to be impartial in everything that you've ever done, ever.
A key part about being a football journalist is making sure that you state only facts and not opinions.
There's only 3 kinds of things: facts, lies, and damn lies. And is that the phrase? Probably not.
I'm not.
Facts, statistics, damn lies. That's what I'm trying to say. Either way, all we do is spout,
If you
on this podcast.
If you tune into any broadcaster that broadcasts anything to do with football, you can see that opinions are quite strong in the football media world. But anyway,
it's lies, damn lies, and statistics. That's what I was trying to say.
okay.
I had such a brain fart.
Well, obviously, talking about the whole Evra fiasco, obviously, I did say I'd talk about it. Nabil Fekir, I believe it is, obviously the Lyon captain. He scored a brace in their 5-0 away thumping in League One against Saint Etienne. But when he scored in the 86th minute, he decided that he was now Lionel Messi and took off his armband before taking his shirt off and showing his name to the Saint Etienne crowd. And then
he came out in the post-match conference, I think, in support of Patrice Evra, because he said that he knows Patrice from the national team and he thinks that everything that's happened to him at the moment is really unfortunate.
Well, subsequently, after he showed his shirt, it obviously made them pretty angry, so they ended up actually storming the pitch, and all the Lyon players had to be taken inside, and I don't actually know what happened as a result of it, but
there'll be bans and fines.
Yeah, you definitely should be banned.
There'll be all sorts of stuff.
It was stupid.
So just for a point of reference, though, Eric Cantona's ban was the 9th longest in football history.
Only what,
9th? I know. So... And I would have thought it'd be slightly higher, to be perfectly honest.
I'm sure there's probably been a couple of bans for life.
I don't know. I mean, wasn't Rio Ferdinand banned for a year for missing a drugs test?
No,
quote unquote.
I'm not 100% sure.
But what I'm saying is that what he did, Evra did, worse than what Cantona did? Because in my opinion, it is. Because we don't know what the motive between the fans were saying. If it was racially motivated, and it is French football, so you can kind of...
I mean, if we're not talking about the quality of football in the French league at the moment, we're talking about stuff outside of football.
Yeah, pretty much. So what I'm saying, the Crystal Palace fan who abused Eric Cantona, you did essentially racially abuse him, or certainly shamed him for being French. And I don't think what he did was right, but yeah, it was...
It'd be interesting.
It was only a kick to the chest. It wasn't a kick to the face.
How many people have been sent off before a game has actually started? I'd be interested to see.
You can find out in the football funnies later.
Oh,
is that really it?
There's a preview.
Oh, okay,
nice.
There's a little preview.
My bad.
But anyway, we'll move on from the Patrice Evra debacle.
Please
because
do.
it is quite a
Poor guy.
quite a somber topic. But anyway, we'll hand this over to Bev at the weekend, because there was obviously the 7-side derby, Bristol City against Cardiff City.
I didn't know.
well, take it away, Bev.
I'll be real with you. No, I won't. No, Neil Warnock is taking a lot of flack for this. I've seen a lot of negativity on Twitter. But in all honesty, Bristol deserved to win the game. I thought Omar Bogle, if he'd stayed on the pitch for 90 minutes, we probably could have grinded out a result, a draw, maybe a win. He played really, really well. I'm really disappointed for him, though, because he's waited his entire career, and he's 24 now, to get a proper chance in the second tier, because he gone through non-league and got into League 2 with Grimsby, and now he seems to have bottled it, because he had 2 goals in 2 games. He scored against Ipswich, and now he scored against Bristol, and now he's got a red card, a 3-match ban. And Kenneth Sahor will be back after the international break, and I can't see him ever getting into the team again, to be honest. We're not going to have a run of injuries like we've had at the start of this season, and we're still second at the moment, so I still think we've done well in terms of that. I guess the long and the short of it is we didn't deserve to win the game, and Cardiff fans who think we do, they're just being biased. It frustrated me.
Do your predictions still stick then? I think you said that they'd probably get in the top 2.
Like you said, it's a long season, isn't it?
It's a long season in the Championship.
Just if there's been any signs from these matches that might
because we're at Bristol at the moment in the league, and
I think
in
they
the
came.
table.
Actually, I said we were second. I think we might be third now. But if you can bear with me,
because the game finished 2-1, wasn't it?
Yes, 2-1 to Bristol. Aidan Flint scored the winner. We're third now behind Sheffield United. Bristol are actually behind us now in fourth because
How close behind you are they?
1 point.
Oh,
But no, Bristol are playing well this season. I don't know why. They haven't exactly recruited well, but they've done okay. Lee Johnson, who everyone was saying had to be sacked because they nearly got relegated last year, did Bristol with a good team as well. We expected them to not do very much, but they kept their faith in him and fair play. They've done well this season. I'm not gonna just sit here and spout Warnock should have done this or Bogle was an idiot, although he was, because realistically we didn't deserve to win that game. But the problem is that Cardiff fans have been used to getting results from games that we haven't deserved to get anything out of, because that's what Neil Warnock does so well. Maybe on another day we could have got a result out of that. Maybe. Either way, that's all I've really got to say about it, to be honest.
I won't punish you in making you talk about it too much. So this leads us into the first ever time we've done this. We posted a tweet, I think it was yesterday or the day before, asking for your guys' questions, and the response was
overwhelming.
Was overwhelming. Yeah, we got a lot of questions, and we will try to answer all of them. So should we get into the first one?
Can we?
Yeah.
I'm really eager to see what you guys have had to say. I've been making note of them, and there's there's a really good mix, I think.
Yeah. So at has a trend on Twitter asks, with Lewes FC given equal pay to male and female footballers, should more clubs follow suit?
Why have you all looked at me
And
as if I'm gonna?
Sure question.
I do know Harry. He's a great guy. It's a good question as well. I think it's interesting because at the end of the day, football is a business, and there's laws in place where women and men have to have equal pay. The problem with this in football is that men's football gets so much more revenue, even in these lower tiers. I believe Lewes are in the 7th tier of football, and the women's team are in the 2nd tier in their league. So the prize money is probably more for the women's team. Therefore, the women's team are probably making more money than the men's team are for the club. So I can absolutely see why that happens. It's wherever the money is. Of
really.
Course,
I'm sure for example, the US national team for ladies, they get paid a lot of money because obviously female football in America is quite big. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken.
The first time ever for a female team to earn more than their male counterparts was when they won the World Cup a few years back.
The US national team. Oh.
Yeah. So that's obviously a good thing. And they got. I think the women's and men's get paid the same now. The weird thing is with lower league football is that obviously when you go to the Premier League or even in the professional tiers, every player's got an agent. Every player negotiates their own contract.
Yeah.
Whereas these lower tiers, every player will get paid the same rate or near enough the same rate. And so, what you're saying is, if you were gonna, the question is, would you support it for all of football? I mean, to be honest, no, because if you were gonna say every man and every woman in the same club has to be paid the same in this country, then they're just going to all go abroad. Alexis Sanchez and Ozil get paid by far the most for playing for Arsenal. I don't know. I mean, Arsenal have got a ladies' team. If they had everyone on those same wages, 150 grand a week.
At the end of the day, it's a business, isn't it?
It would bankrupt them. Yeah. I mean, I think what they've done is amazing, and if a club can afford to do it, then I would fully support it. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
But only if it makes fiscal sense, because I'm surprised that a team in the 7th tier of English football's got a women's team, to be perfectly honest.
Well, they have. Well, I think you could view it as a team in the 2nd tier of women's football.
Have got a men's team.
But yeah. Just to review my quick thoughts, I agree with Bev. In an ideal world, I would say that all footballers, regardless of gender, should be paid the same. But it's just a fact of there's more money in men's football at the moment, and in terms of the amount of money invested into women's football, should clubs follow suit if they can afford it? I guess.
Yeah.
If they can afford it, I'm sure with the increase in popularity of women's football, the pay for female footballers will increase. I'm sure that the average salary for a female footballer is 35 grand, which is a lot low. Well, that's footballers in that in a week. Yeah, so
I think the world's best player, the Brazilian, is her name Marca, something like that. She earns about the same as a player in League One would earn.
Yeah. So it would be great to see female footballers being paid as much as men's footballers, but at the moment with female footballers now, it is on the rise, I believe, but I don't think that's realistic with the amount of money that's been pumped into, for example, the Premier League, like the TV deals and stuff like that. It's natural that players are going to get paid more because there's more money in the game. I think that's just where it is. If you look at the NFL in America, obviously, there's loads of sponsorship deals, there's loads of TV deals. The stadiums reach like 100,000 capacity, so naturally.
And they're all named as well.
Yeah, so there's more money. If there's more money in a sport, then it's natural that the players of the sport are going to get paid more.
It's kind of basic capitalism where it does trickle down.
Yeah.
You know, the money trickles down, and I think if you looked at the economics of it all, the money that goes into women's football probably trickles down around the same amount as it does for men's football.
I mean, you can argue if there's more money in men's football, then subsequently there's going to be more money in female football as well.
No, that doesn't really work.
It's just the industry as a whole. I think as football gains popularity, all types of football gets increased awareness. I mean, if you look at sticking in football, like the example of the success of the Wales football team, like sparked an interest in investing more into Welsh grassroots football.
Yeah, that's true.
So you could look at that as a sort of argument where if one area of football is increasing in popularity, then investment can be made in that individual sector.
But you're not going to see a £5 or £6 billion deal going into the Women's Premier League because there isn't an audience for it. I mean, you can argue for days about why that might be, but the reality is if female footballers were going to be paid that much, it would bankrupt almost every club, almost all of them. So I mean, I think the gist of what we're getting is if clubs can financially afford to do it, then absolutely. And for what must be a standout club with Lewes FC having an outstandingly good women's team and maybe a not so good men's team, I fully support it. Maybe the women should be paid more. They clearly make more money for the club.
Yeah. So
right. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you for that question. We'll go into a second one. At Tony Moore78 on Twitter asks us, if you could introduce or get rid of one game-changing rule in football, what would it be and why?
This is a great question.
This is a great question. Thank you for this question.
Yeah. Because we were talking about this slightly before we went on air, and all of us had different ideas, didn't we?
I'm surprised about that because, well, we've talked about some silly rules in football, but I am surprised that we've all got different results. Yeah. Well, mine and yours, Bev, are sort of similar. So we've got, if we're introducing a rule, I think it's better investment into video-assisted refs. We saw the sort of trial of it in the Confederations Cup in the summer, and granted, it was very problematic in the Confederations Cup, but I think if there's more focus on it and more investment into it, because let's be fair, in terms of like video-assisted refs, rugby as a sport has got it down, pardon the pun, to a T. Hey. But anyway,
cricket, I think, does it incredibly well as well. I know people will complain about cricket being boring.
I'm surprised it hasn't been introduced sooner because there's so many examples. There's so many examples of how. Well, we've seen it with the goal line technology, and that's worked wonders.
That was a start.
That was a start, and I think similar things with video-assisted refs could really.
If it was me, I would be saying
it could stop Arsene Wenger from blaming losses on the ref.
I think
instead the technology.
At the moment, a captain's job in football is so redundant. It's so redundant. So what I would say is that every team gets probably 2 or 3 reviews per match, maybe 1 per half. I'm not sure. I'm not making a decisive ruling here. I want to make that quite clear. And then if there's a contentious decision, they can use one of their reviews with the referee. It's the captain's decision to make that, and then the referee will go to probably a 4th or I guess 5th official to who can decide that. And if it turns out that they weren't offside, and they get a drop ball or an indirect free kick, something like that.
Yeah.
And it's going to be less complicated with football. I mean, rugby, you've got 10 men jumping on top of each other. I mean, it's going to be quicker. It's just, the decisions that they'll have to
you
make.
think it would be quicker?
No, I
hope
mean,
so.
as in compared to the other sports, the decisions you have to make in other sports, like I said, there's not 10 men on top of each other and you're trying to find the ball.
No,
so.
yeah.
There was a study going around that was from someone has studied the Premier League and actual Premier League games, and what makes up the 90 minutes, and the lowest match in the Premier League, and I forget which one it was. I'm probably not making my point really well. Was that less than 40 minutes of the 90 were actually played, but that were playing football. The rest were stoppages.
Oh, wow.
Or things going out for a throw-in or whatnot. And I find that really interesting, because if we stop the clock like we did in rugby, would that have an effect?
I'd say not.
You think there would still be a lot more stoppages?
I think.
Well-
I don't know.
Well, that leads me into another debate of the way that obviously the game clock works in rugby, where if there's a stoppage, there's pause the clock, there's no added time. Do you think that would be better in football, or do you agree with the concept of added time?
I don't know. 'Cause added time, that there is something special about it, but I think maybe it's hard.
Would it be easier for refs to just stop their
It's
watches?
hard to make it circumstantial, because you could say that maybe you could stop the clock when there's a big injury. When someone's out for 9-10 minutes and they're stretching them off. But obviously, if you're going to then do it, then you have to do it. You have to apply it across the whole game.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You either.
Because if you don't do that, then it just opens up another avenue for the ref to be criticised after the game.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Anyway, well, something that you would introduce.
Was it you who had
Liam?
something you'd
Oh,
introduce?
Yeah,
Oh.
definitely a game-changing rule I get rid of is obviously when when your team's player goes off, for a little, not probably minor injury,
Receives a bit of treatment.
and he's ready to come back on. He's roaring and ready, but no, he's got to wait for the damn referee who's normally paying no attention to him. Got to wave him back on. But yeah, I'd get rid of that, because I find it. I don't see the against factors for it.
No, well,
The odd
don't
thing
know.
is with that is that it doesn't apply to goalkeepers. So if your goalkeeper receives treatment,
that's
then he can just come
ridiculous.
straight
That's
back on.
ridiculous.
Well,
It-
I mean,
It's a really inconsistent rule.
we saw it. I think it was one of the games in the week or last week that Lingard went off injured for a bit, and then he came back and got a yellow card from the referee because he didn't wait to be waved on.
Dear
I hate
me.
to bring
It's
back
petty.
another Manchester United example, but that's one that I can think of where it's really, really, like you said, Lee,
I just
petty.
don't understand it, because you're essentially a man down. As a manager, you're thinking, I want this player straight back on. But
Yeah.
why? Oh, I don't know. It bugs me.
It's just unfair. But anyway, one rule that I'd get rid of, was the abolishment of away goal rules in tournaments.
It's big.
It's a bold statement, but I know the likes of Gary Lineker have come
Yeah.
out saying that the away goal is rubbish, and I guess it sort of is.
It comes as
mean,
two.
Granted that a team does have an advantage in European competitions when they're playing at home. Like, I know going to Russia and getting a 1-0 win is quite impressive given the different crowds and stuff like that. But I still think that the way it should come down to is if there's a draw on aggregate by the end of the second leg, then it should go to extra time and penalties, because it just makes it more exciting to watch, because there's nothing more of an anticlimax, so to speak, than having a really good cup draw or like a semi-final draw from two of the biggest teams be called to a draw based on away goals.
It takes something away from the fact that you play two legs as well, and that it goes to it's
Yeah,
an aggregate
exactly.
score. Well, it isn't an aggregate score, because some goals are counting as two, which is just
Yeah.
ridiculous.
And they actually got rid of it in the Championship. It was in the playoffs where you had away
Yeah.
goals, and then they realised a few years ago, well, hang on, you've played 46 games, and you could not go to Wembley because on away goals,
Ugh.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it is
Sucker
harsh.
punch.
Yeah, but the thing I would get rid of is how protected goalkeepers are. Now I see so often goalkeepers getting quote unquote fouled, and really all that all that's happened is players have contested for the ball and dared to touch him. It's quite annoying, and especially in the Championship, which is a more physical league than the Premier League. And I'm not saying goalkeepers should be bullied or be pushed into the goal, which won
Carfan
Cardiff.
Ramsey.
It won Cardiff the FA Cup final in 1927. Was a foul on the goalkeeper that wasn't given as a foul. Maybe that's why I want to bring it back. We'll win a game then. I just think that goalkeepers for some reason are just given this god tier status where most of the time they're 6'6", and with their hands up, they're not. They can fairly get contested. And still have a bit of, of push and throw.
I think it is sort of more of a universal problem, sort of in parallel with outfield players, where obviously you see diving and that come in. I think when it comes to a goalkeeper,
I think it's because
it's just similar.
Also, when there's been big injury scares around goalkeepers after a collision, it's mainly been to do with head injuries. And I think there's such a stigma in sport in general around head injuries, where teams and management or managers or management for that. I just think they don't want to take the risk of a concussion. I mean, you saw the Petr Cech obviously injury 10 years ago.
But that wasn't from contending the goalkeeper. Yeah. That was just from what was his name? Hunt, something like that, from Reading.
It was Reading, I do know that. But
he just for some reason kicked him in the head.
Yeah.
It was a really simple thing that didn't need to happen, and it nearly killed Petr Cech. And I watched that game live when I was really young.
I
and then
it
happened to Cudicini as well in like the next. Maybe in the same game.
Yeah,
I think
John Terry finished that
yeah.
game in goal. Yeah.
That's a
fun thing for
But
you.
I do understand your point you're making, Bev, in terms of. I mean, you see players like Giroud who can't even jump for the ball if the goalkeeper's going for it.
You can't jump within 2 yards of the goalkeeper anymore because you've blown up for a foul, and I was like, it's so frustrating to watch. It ends the flow of the game.
I'm all for increased competition because I think footballers should have a physical presence, and I think that they should be applauded for having a physical presence, but I don't think that should sacrifice the safety of goalkeepers. I think that as a goalkeeper, your health is probably the most at risk on a football pitch, purely because you're diving around, you've got the risk of head injuries and stuff like that, and I just think no one wants to see another more serious head injuries in football.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time where you could literally run into the goalkeeper and boot him. And there was a goalkeeper who actually once broke his neck whilst playing and finished the game. I forget his name. It was from like black and white. Well, when football was black and white, not literally, but I wouldn't be up for that. But I'm just thinking a corner. Just let the defenders defend.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, that's what they're there to do. And then the goalkeeper will just run out, trip over, and be like, "All right, that's a foul, and that's a wasted corner." Then.
Yeah, it seems as if he drops the ball, then he's clearly been fouled.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
yeah.
But the other thing I'd probably say in terms of maybe rules, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if it's only been this season. It's not a rule. But what is it with these players taking corners? The ball's getting further away from that corner. I don't get it. Is it just this season? But even my brother who doesn't watch football said, he said, it's not even in the actual area where they take it from. I said, no, they don't anymore. It's literally, they'll be getting a magnifying glass out before long.
You would say it's the same with penalty kicks as well. The ball isn't even on the penalty spot anymore.
Why? We wouldn't expect that if that was a penalty. Like someone gets fouled on the edge of the box. Yeah, it's alright. He was close to the penalty.
Corners will be taken from the corner of the 18-yard box now.
But yeah,
you didn't specify which corner.
Bring it back into that, the area it's meant to be taken from. The fact they can go on the other side, of the line now.
I mean, I guess 2 yards can make a difference when you're making a cross. Who knows?
I just thought it was an interesting one to raise.
When you're Peter Whittingham, it doesn't. He always took them from directly in the middle of the D, and everyone went straight up to someone's balls. He scored directly from a corner once. I was mad. Now he's rotting up Blackburn. Serves him right.
That was a great question. Thank you for that question, Tony Moore. So our next question at Will Shepio 1 asks: Should Liverpool pay the extra £5 million to bring Keita in early? Will he improve the team, and how? 100% yes.
Oh, can you explain it though to them the sort of clause before?
Okay.
Guys
before I do that, I just want to say shout out to Sheppy. He listens to the show on his way to Swansea. He commutes to Swansea every single day to uni, and he listens to the show. So big props to him. Anyway, the clause essentially is because they paid 50 million essentially to get Naby Keita next year. So the clause is that if RB Leipzig do not qualify for the knockout of the Champions League, then they can pay 5 million extra and get him in January.
It's bizarre. 5 million.
It's great business. Whichever way you look at it, it's amazing business. We'll find out where they are in the table now. RB Leipzig, because they could qualify, and then this question's redundant. But he would have 100% improved that midfield.
But what if they don't?
Well,
you've talked about Klopp being stubborn.
He clearly wanted to bring Naby Keita in, otherwise he wouldn't have paid 70 million for him. But I think this brings us back to a topic that we talked about last week or the week before, where there's a serious lack of class in that midfield for Liverpool, because I think Lallana's decent, Emre Can's good on his day, but Jordan Henderson, I don't know how he wouldn't make it into any other top 6 team, probably not even a top 7 team.
But he was on the cover of FIFA. He must be good.
And that was the year I didn't buy it.
But I to answer the question, what will he bring to the team? He will bring so much. He'll be that person that would connect the ball on the counter to the likes of Coutinho and Mane. Sorry.
My genuine opinions of him are that, I mean, he's 23 at the moment. He'll be 24 by the time this probably happens. That he's probably the best young midfielder in the world.
I wouldn't agree with that.
Okay.
Skipping ahead of that.
But no, I honestly think like he is. Why am I going to say this? But everyone compares him to N'Golo Kante. They're not similar players. He's much more of a cart horse than Kante, and he just does everything and everything. And he takes the ball from the defenders and he pushes forward and he scores amazing goals and he gets about 5 interceptions a game, which is good. You know, for those who don't look at stats. And I just think he's just a quality player. And Liverpool don't have that kind of player. They've got 2 different types of players. They've got Emre Can, who can do the defensive work but not go forward, except when he scores worldies. And then you've got Adam Lallana, who can play in only one position on the pitch, and that's nowhere. On the bench. And I genuinely feel that him, Can, and Coutinho, with the front 3 of, Firmino, Salah, and Mane, that I'm not saying it'll solve all Liverpool's problems, because they've still got Daniel Sturridge coming off the bench. That's a serious issue, but it'll certainly do them good.
Okay, so in terms of RB Leipzig's upcoming Champions League fixtures, they've got Monaco away on the 21st of November, and then they've got Besiktas at home.
How are they doing in their
on the
group?
6th of December? I'm not too sure, actually. Hang on.
Monaco are doing really poorly though as well, aren't they?
Yeah, compared
to last season, I suppose.
Yeah, which is, you can understand.
But Besiktas are winning a few games.
I mean, RB Leipzig's form so far in the Champions League, in the last 5 fixtures, they've got 3 losses and 2 wins.
So they're on 6 points.
Liverpool fans will hope that Leipzig do not qualify for the knockout stages.
Oh, for sure. I think most football fans, if you understand, maybe one day we'll talk about it, the scummery that's around RB Leipzig is unbelievable. So maybe football fans in general wouldn't want to see them qualify for the Champions League.
But in answering the question of would bringing him in for £5 million early be worth it, 100%. I mean, even if they bring him in and they secure either 4th or 3rd place with a Champions League slot, get quite far in the cups and stuff like that, I think that would be £5 million well spent.
Of course.
I mean, you look at teams who pay like £12 million for a 1-year loan deal. I'm not sure how much United, I can't remember off the top of my head how much United paid for Falcao for his year on loan with us, but
it was probably quite a bit.
It was probably his wages were enough to cover that. But I think anything that Liverpool can do to bring in Naby Keita early, they should do it.
Yeah.
Even if it's paying another 20 or 30 million pounds.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I think the situation at Liverpool at the moment is that dire in terms of midfield, and I think similar to Arsenal, who have also got midfield issues at the moment. I know there's not many players in Arsenal who will hold a midfield other than probably Granit Xhaka, but when he's got Aaron Ramsey beside him, there's not much he can do because Aaron Ramsey's playing further up the pitch than Sanchez. But,
in terms of their group as well, Besiktas and Porto are the 2 who are currently going through. They would go to the Europa League at the moment because they're in 3rd above Monaco, who are in 4th. But Besiktas are on 10 points, Porto are on 6, Leipzig are on 4, and Monaco are on 2.
So that group is quite open then.
That is open. However, there's only 2 games left, and Besiktas, they need 1 point, and already qualified. So realistically, they're fighting between Porto
But
and they
on
are
the flip
playing
side,
Porto next, aren't they?
if Besiktas lose the next 2 games and Leipzig win the next 2 games, then they could probably go through as well.
That's true. I lied, by the way. Leipzig are playing Monaco and Besiktas. They're not actually playing Porto. And if they play Porto, that would probably pretty much define their season.
But I mean, those games are coming up in the next 2 months. Well, I think the Besiktas game is in December, I want to say, yeah, because they're away to Monaco in November, and then they play Besiktas in December. So that would, if they don't qualify by December, that's a perfect amount of time for them to bring him in January. So
in answer to the question, should they do it? Yes. What would he bring? Everything. And all Liverpool fans will be watching Leipzig over the next 2 matches.
Well, thank you for that question. The next one from
Alex Bonus 1.
Yes. Thoughts on the lack of British managers currently in the Premier League? What can be done to change this? Right.
Take this one, Ross.
I've got strong opinions on this because I believe that as a league, the Premier League should be attracting the best managers in the world, and I think it has done this season. If you look at all the top 6 teams, they all have world class managers apart from Arsenal at the moment. But anyway,
you think world class?
Arsene Wenger's still, well, he is a manager, but he is a big name. Well, he's obviously the longest serving manager in the Premier League. He's done a lot for Arsenal, but in terms of the top 6 managers, you've got Jurgen Klopp, you've got you've got Conte, you've got Jose Mourinho, well, obviously Pochettino. They are all in the top 10 managers in the world at the moment, I believe, and they are big name managers. The problem with English managers at the moment, there's not many good ones. If you think of
Gareth Southgate, mate.
Yeah, the best English manager at the moment who's managing the English team is Gareth Southgate, and I think that's just. I mean, the likes of Harry Redknapp aren't flying high at the moment. I mean, theoretically, you could bring in a policy that requires a minimum amount of English managers in the league, similar to what the Premier League does with the amount of homegrown talent.
That would be so impossible.
That would be hard.
It would, because bear in mind there's one position at each club, and if you say, you need 5, well then you're essentially putting pressure on a club to hire a manager, but then you'd be like, well, why can't somebody else do it?
And to keep a manager, you might see managers actually staying longer in their posts if they then have to find British, right?
My kind of thoughts on this are, in general, that it's disappointing to see British managers not do that well. But then you could also argue that they have. Although the last, English manager to win a major trophy was Harry Redknapp in 2008.
What was that? Was that
the FA Cup final? I won't talk anymore.
Yes.
I mean, they've been doing okay. British managers and British players are never encouraged to go abroad, and historically when they do go abroad, except for Welsh ones, for some reason they always do well, tend not to. You look at, Wally with the brolly, Steve McLaren, that's it. I knew his moniker before I knew him. Going to Holland and talking like this, because he thinks that's how Dutch people talk. He's just talking through his teeth. It was weird, and then he's bounced around. So has Roy Hodgson. I mean, he's back in the Premier League now, isn't he? But in answer to the question as well, how do you change it? To be honest, you don't, because the Premier League is better than it's ever been.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, I think what the Premier League should be doing is attracting the best managers they could, because that will enhance the game. I don't think many people care these days if an English manager is managing an English club, as long as that club is doing well, whatever's best for the quality of football and best for the Premier League, really, I believe.
Yeah. Right. Second question. What am I on about? Another question. Jordan Jones on Facebook said, "Who is the right man to replace Ronald Koeman at Everton?"
Well, first of all, shout out to Jordan Jones. He's obviously the host of the Inside Wales podcast, and he's the founder of eClub Peldroid.
You know better than me. Yeah, I believe that's right.
Yeah. Also,
we've been in contact on Twitter for a while. He's a very good.
He studies sport journalism at a uni. He's very good in terms of the local football scene. But
I believe he has his own podcast as well about Welsh football.
Yeah, so check him out on Twitter. Check out all of his work. Great guy. So in terms of who's the right man to replace Ronald Koeman at Everton, I believe Claudio Ranieri.
Oh wow.
The Nantes manager.
Oh yes,
Yes.
yeah,
that's
yeah.
what-
I still think Ranieri will make a good pick.
Okay, I think Carlo Ancelotti. I think they could get him, but you know,
Blimey. It'd be one hell
Whoa,
of a, one hell of a,
blimey.
be one hell of a grab.
It would be good.
Oh, blimey.
There we go.
I don't even know who I'd want to put forward. I know on Match Today they asked Sam Allardyce whether he would go for one of the jobs, and he didn't give a very firm answer at all.
But Sam
Just
Allardyce
sort
has
of
been-
mumbled his way through.
Yeah, he has been linked. He has been
He-
linked to the post.
He's
Oh,
been
dear.
interviewed, if reports are to be believed.
Really?
So what I would say is that Everton, they're a big club. I mean, they've got a lovely new stadium that's going into production, I think, next year. And they've got a lot of money, so I think they should be looking higher. They're less tin pot than West Ham, for sure.
For West Ham.
Dig.
For West Ham.
Digging my own grave, having a dig at West Ham at the same time. No, I just genuinely think that if Carlo Ancelotti is free next year, because he said that he will be, and there's not going to be many big teams looking for managers, I think that
I mean,
they should.
I guess the cliche answer for this question would be Sean Dyche. I mean, he's obviously doing well at Burnley. He's been linked to the. He's been
Why would he
linked
go
to the-
though?
I don't know.
No, he won't.
Yeah,
He
wouldn't.
won't.
He won't.
But I'm just going to make a point of my Claudio Ranieri, even though he is manager at Nantes, and Nantes are 5th in Ligue 1 at the moment.
Oh, is that true? I didn't know
That is, yeah. So he is doing well at the club, and I just think if Everton are trying to be implementing the 4-4-2 at the moment with their style of play, and I think that the main manager in the last couple of seasons who's brought back the 4-4-2 has been Claudio Ranieri,
Okay.
and I just think Ranieri isn't done in the Premiership.
But my counter to that would be that Ranieri had a team that was based on the counter-attack. They had so much pace in abundance. And if you were going to point out one team that has zero pace, it would be Everton.
Yeah, but I think that's where they would recruit. I mean, you'd probably start Morales and Lennon like we've been crying out for them to do. Probably sign a faster striker, maybe.
You'd like to think so.
You like to think so, but yeah.
True. Right, thank you for the question. Also, next question is from Reese Skinner, or at Skinner CCSC. We know him well. He's a photographer, and we did a story with him last year, didn't we?
We
He's a really nice guy, so check him out. His photography is really good. And this is to do with Wales and the new kit. So when you look at the designs that Adidas have given to Colombia and Germany,
Really nice design.
they're
Can I
unbelievable,
add?
aren't they?
All of
Could
them.
Wales have asked for a better kit? And you know what? This is really interesting because when I saw the kit for the first time, the new Wales kit, I was like, you know what? I really like this. And since everyone's been ratting on it, I hate it now. I'm just a slave to trends.
I still love the kit. I mean, it's very similar to the United kit this season where it's got like the 2 buttons, but I do like the design of the Wales kit this season. I think it's really sleek. I like what Adidas are doing with the stripes down the sort of torso, going to like the bottom. But in terms of the designs that Adidas have come out with for the World Cup, the Germany one, the Colombia one, the Mexico
I saw them
one,
yesterday.
even the Russia one, so nice. I think they could have done something different with it, like the patterns on the Colombia one going up the side.
Yes,
Oh,
I think they could
lovely.
have like implemented some white and green in there, maybe do something like that. I think
because-
that could have been good.
I think was it the official Wales Twitter account? It might have been tweeted. This is an homage to this era kit, like 1976 to 78, something like that. And they were like, well, that strip had green and yellow stripes down the sides.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, it's on the back. You look on the back. It's on the collar. There's it's laughable. It's just like this little patch that's green and yellow, and it doesn't even look like it should be there. It makes the kit look worse. And the fact that they're trying to call it an homage is just disrespectful to that era of Wales.
But I mean, it's kind of funny because the kit does come out today. So I mean, if after we finish recording you want to jump over to JD and check it out, I mean, I'm more than down to.
I will, and I will spit on it.
We have that yellow kit though, don't we?
No. That turned out to be just a training shirt that they printed the badge on because they didn't want to wear. They didn't want to wear the black and grey and green kit because they thought it would bring them bad luck, I believe. So that was just the generic yellow Adidas training kit with the badge on.
Well, that was a nice kit.
It was a nice
You can
kit.
make that kit with an Adidas training top and a sew-on badge.
I'll make sure I do
It's
that.
a shame.
Please.
But,
Shame.
I do like the Wales kit, but I just think there's different tiers to what Adidas do with the different national teams. Obviously, the biggest teams like Germany, even Colombia now, they've got a couple of quality players these days. I think they put more into the designs for those sort of teams, and I think in the last couple of kits, especially for Wales, you can see the lack of effort that Adidas have put into designing them. Because let's face it, even though the kit for Euro 2016 was quite sleek and nice, it was very bland. It was a very bland kit.
But I mean, that's always going to be an iconic kit now for Wales, naturally.
It is, yeah.
But then you look at the kit now, and it's really similar. But then they've got one button. There's just a button and a collar, and I have no idea why they've chosen one button. Like, why not three?
How much do you think of it though is who has the say on what it looks like?
Just
Probably
Adidas,
just
probably.
Adidas,
It's just Adidas.
Yeah. Because I think the Welsh FA probably gets so much money after the Adidas deal that they don't care about the design, to be quite honest.
I mean, I think that, the question is really valid in that, do we feel hard done by a little bit, but Welsh football hasn't got this kind of pedigree of unbelievable. We can't throw back to the team of 58 where we got smacked by Pele.
Maybe we should just be thankful that Adidas want to sponsor our
Yes.
kits.
Yeah, we
Yes.
could have Kappa still.
We could go back to Umbro, I mean, if you really want.
Gosh.
But
Right, this one's directly for Ross.
Thank you, Reese, for that question.
It's a good one. This one's directly for Ross. This is from Nathuku Gift on Facebook, and he says, "What up with Man and Tide losing?"
I don't know.
Man and Tide. This might have larger implications. I think you'd read into
I appreciate the question. I really do. But I don't know what to say. Let's cut that. Not out of the show. We're keeping the joke, but I'm not gonna be mean anyway. Dan Moffat on Twitter, Dan from the year below, he says, starting 11 for the Panama game, any chance of Bradshaw, Woodburn or Umpetu starting?
Well, we have been championing Coleman to play the Welsh young'uns probably since the Georgian Republic of Ireland games, and look where that got us. But no, I think if there's going to be a chance for the Wales young players to play, it's got to be now in Welsh friendlies that don't mean nothing. I mean, you've got the likes of, like he said, Ampadu and Woodburn that are not going to get much game time at all for their clubs. I mean, even though Ampadu did keep David Luiz out of the matchday squad against Manchester United, and he has been described, well, Conte has described him as a great player, and Graham Souness, I think, has even come out in praise in Ampadu, and I think, well, he's only 17 years old, so I think he's got the world in front of him, but I think we know how poor Chelsea are in terms of playing academy players. They're renowned as probably the worst in the league for
But
it.
he started one game, hasn't he?
I think so.
In the cup.
I think so, yeah.
In the cup.
But I mean, he's not going to get much game time, so I think he should really stamp himself down or get enough caps for Wales, sorry, I should say, so that he can become a regular starter in the future. I mean, we've talked about this period for Wales now being a sort of reshuffle. They should start building their team for the next major tournament, and I think you can't do that without the young players and them getting experience, because at the moment we've got loads of great young talent that can come through to the Wales team, but I think there's not that standout name like a Gareth Bale in 2010 or 2009 that we think, okay, they can potentially lead a side in the future. I mean, we've said that Ben Woodburn could do that.
I don't see him being a captain, though.
No.
He's not a voice on the pitch. I mean, that could be down to his age. I don't know, but for some reason, Bradshaw has not had a chance, and he's still young.
Well, he's come in for Gareth Bale. In terms of team news, Wales are without Hal Robson-Kanu, Emyr Hughes, and Gareth Bale.
Emyr Hughes isn't going to be a massive loss.
No.
But I promise you that.
I want to say Robson-Kanu will be, but I still think Sam Vokes should get in ahead of him.
Of course.
Of course.
Now, Bradshaw's a good player. I think that Cardiff were linked with him once, so I did a bit of research on him there, and then he seemed to be good. I think he's only 23, 24, something like that. So he fully could have been by now a Wales international if our attack was not, our best asset. I just think that the Panama game is such a redundant match.
It's a game I'm going to.
Ticket.
I've got my ticket for the Panama game.
I know Panama are going to the World Cup, and I respect them for it.
Hopefully going to see my boy Ben Woodburn get a start.
I believe they're the smallest nation going. No, that wasn't. That wasn't just a statement. They're the smallest nation going.
They're going to the World Cup.
Going to the World Cup. It's either them or Iceland, one of the two. And I just feel like, despite that, we should win it. And I know it's friendly, and I know we're going to put out a B team. Can we just do something good, something constructive, get some players?
We just want to take something from the game, because there's no point.
We're going to get
as much as a spectator, I want to see some of our best players start, and purely because the last Wales game I went to was a 0-0 draw against Bosnia. I don't want another 0-0 draw, but I mean, I do want to see a lot, like, some of the young talent get a run out. So like your Impardus, like your Woodburns, stuff like that. In terms of the players that are available for the two friendlies, you've got Hennessy, Ward, Maxwell, Ben Davis, James Chester, Neil Taylor, Gunter, Lockyer, Williams, Impadu, Allen, Edwards, King, Ledley, Ramsey, Evans, Hedges, Watkins, Bradshaw, Isgrove, Vokes, Lawrence, Brooks, and Woodburn.
Yeah, start all of them.
Yeah, start all of them.
If we start with that team, we might beat France.
Well, you never know.
Yeah.
But in terms of starting 11s, I think it's more or less going to be a lock as to. We've like we said many times, we are a team of 11 players. I mean, that's probably a Michael Owen statement, but
he looks a footballer, doesn't he? I like those players with 2 feet.
You don't win games if you don't score goals.
You can't tell me Spurs didn't deserve to lose that match.
Hang on.
Bear with me.
There's no way Spurs deserve to lose that.
You don't win games.
There we go.
There wasn't worth it, was it?
It was not worth it.
The payoff was poor.
I think Impadu should definitely start. He is a bright spark. I think Woodburn should definitely start as well. I mean, we've been saying Woodburn should start for the last 3 games, and he hasn't. So I don't know what Chris Coleman is doing.
I found out as well this week that Mpadu's dad played almost his entire career with Swansea when they were in like the 4th tier.
Oh, really?
Yeah, way back when. So that was just an interesting thing that I found. Right, on to our next question. David _Reynolds 7. Do you think that Arsenal's 3 at the back formation is working? And what are your opinions on Lacazette not starting against Man City?
I mean, we've already said our opinions on Lacazette not starting against Man City. He's one of the most prolific goal scorers in Europe over the last couple of seasons. Arsenal paid 50 million for him,
So
and he's not starting in big games. So
but I'm interested to hear, because I don't actually know what Liam's opinion on the back 3 is.
Well, the back 3 was something we adopted with about the last, I'd say, 5 games left of the season. Obviously the season just gone. And if you know, as an Arsenal fan, we tend to go on a little run, sort of like Wigan do at the end of the season. So we probably could have played 1 player at the back and we'd still have racked the points up. But we didn't sign the players to sort of play the formation. Obviously, we saw it worked, it could work, but then we didn't become accustomed.
You seem to be set for wing backs in terms of the system. I mean, Bellerin's a very attacking right back, and then Kolasinac is, I think his best position is left wing back. So, because I'm pretty sure he played a lot at left mid for Schalke last season, or he played a couple of games there.
I think honestly he was a wing back.
Yeah, because I think he also ended up in the team of the year as the wing back or as the left.
Yeah,
back,
but he's got a good finish about him as well. He seems to be a great finishing left back, sort of similar to like a Leighton Baines or something like that, like one of those fullbacks that does have ability to shoot.
But he's unbelievably strong as well.
He is, yeah,
crazy. Like,
he is.
He's joy to obviously against City. who did we play the game before? But obviously I said too, the amount of crossfield balls that Xhaka played to him was incredible, and then to then play him on the same side as Xhaka against City was probably a mistake again. But in terms of back three, I don't know. I think it's just Wenger sort of trying to be tactical savvy as he does. Trying to.
I mean, when you're trying so hard to play three at the back that you're playing Francois Coquelin in centre back when you've got Mustafi. Well, I mean, Koscielny's starting on the right as a right centre back, and Monreal's playing a centre back. I mean, he hasn't been bad at centre back.
Well, a lot of Arsenal fans say he's probably unsung hero, but
if you didn't have Kolasinac, he'd be the best left back in your team for sure.
Indeed.
I think it's just Arsenal trying to get Monreal and Kolasinac in the same team. I think if you start with a back four and you have Mustafi and Koscielny as your centre backs with Bellerin and Kolasinac on the wings, as full backs, I think that's a great defence. I don't get why he's trying to force Arsenal to play three at the back, mainly because it can flex to a five at the back, so there's an extra cover in defence. But I mean, if you play four at the back, then you've got more numbers in midfield, which means you can create more chances. So I don't get it. I mean,
but I think historically we've always had injuries with our centre backs. So to then play a third one and not sign anybody over the summer.
The number of centre backs you guys have had, and they're still not playing.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, you've got Mustafi. I'm not sure if is he injured or was he on the bench against City?
I don't have to check actually.
But anyway, you've got
Mustafi
Mustafi and Koscielny, who I think would make a decent centre back partnership together.
But if someone would say to me, should we play it or continue playing it?
No.
I don't know.
If it was me, I'd be concerned more, to be honest, about Hector Bellerin in that right back or right wing back position, because I know he's got the pace and he can cover, but he is appalling going forward. He can't cross to save his life.
Yeah, we sort of missed the days where we had Bakary Sagna who
he could float a ball.
Have his critics. He could put in a cross, but no, I understand you.
Right, we've got one more question, and it's another Arsenal-related question, but I think we can all pitch in a little more on this. Do you think Jack Wilshere is deserving of a place in Arsenal's starting 11, and should he be considered for an England call-up? So I'll answer the second part of the question first. No, absolutely not. Definitely not.
When you look at the amount...
I forgot to mention, sorry, this is from Ben Napton Journo on Twitter. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Ben, for the question, but in terms of... if you look at the amount of decent midfielders that England have at their disposal at the moment. I mean, of course, you've got Dele Alli, you've got Eric Dyer, who does a job at midfielder when he wants to. You've got
Jordan Henderson.
Yeah, Jordan Henderson, Adam Lallana. I mean, there's a lot. Don't get me wrong. I think Wilshere should get a couple of run-ins for England. I think his playing style is quite different to what the current English midfield plays at the moment, but in terms of him getting a call up and being a starting midfielder, no, I don't think so.
Well, over Dyer or Henderson?
No,
considering when they played, it was so uninspiring. It wasn't positive
there was no creativity.
Yeah,
but I think that was probably because did Dele Alli play in front of them? I don't think he did.
How inconsistent do you think Jack Wilshere is, though? I mean, obviously he's been plagued with
well
injuries
for
over the last couple of
season.
seasons.
I would have been quite happy for him to stay at Bournemouth. But
I mean, would you would you start him for Arsenal? Would he be on your starting 11 in Arsenal?
No, he wouldn't start.
Then why should he start for England?
True. That's a good point.
I would say that as well. The really important thing with that is that he played well for Bournemouth. You know, we're not looking at.
Mark Noble played well for West Ham.
Oh. West Ham again.
What did West Ham done? What does Mark Noble need to do to get an England caller? What does he need to do?
Play well.
Not play for a tin pot club.
Oh, again. I'm just trying to help West Ham out here. I feel like I represent them.
Quite because we're journalists.
Yes.
Sorry. But I'm being impartial. It is a fact that West Ham are a tin pot club.
Oh my God. I really hope that...
We'll carry him out on a stick for you. Don't worry.
I really hope the Green Street hooligans are not listening to this, because Bev, your life is probably in danger.
There's a big
right
bounty on his head, and depending on how high it is.
Thanks, lad.
I'm slightly tempted.
But anyway,
It's nice to know my co-hosts have got my back. But
when it comes to football, hooligans, no. Okay,
yeah, I've seen
far
him
away.
firsthand.
Millwall, aren't we? No, I can't think of a reason why Arsene Wenger should start him. Should start Jack Wilshere.
I mean, he's very similar to Ramsey's playing style, I guess.
I don't know. I mean, in terms of stats, which we love here, he doesn't contribute any at all. Let's be fair. Like the one
Don't
season.
play it because
No,
because
he doesn't deserve it.
all Liam said was he doesn't contribute that much, and then we were gonna get, oh, that's a good stat.
No,
That's a good stat. Yeah, that. Oh dear God.
but he doesn't contribute much, goals wise or even assists. But he's a very positive player. I mean, I suppose that's all you can really give to him. But he's losing his hair as well. Credit to him. It takes a lot in a man. For you to
Wayne
start
Rooney's
losing.
been balding since he was 23, and he got nearly 100 England caps.
Yeah, but no, I don't think he deserves.
No.
Maybe England. Oh, I don't know.
Like I said, I think he should get some run-ins for England. But
At the moment, the England team is a lot poorer than the Arsenal's team.
yeah, I think
Thank
we'll
you.
be.
You're welcome.
And that's saying something. But I think we're being quite harsh, because if he does get a run in for Arsenal and he does play really good football, then he will warrant his place on the England team. Because
I think if you sit Southgate down, tie him to a chair and play that Norwich goal on repeat, I think he's got him. He's walking into that England team.
Gareth Southgate just has it streamed on the big screen before every game. This is what he can do. The problem is, I think around that time, Arsenal had a much more creative midfield than England do now. So
Well, we'll question whether he'd get into the Arsenal side. Obviously, Cazorla's still injured. If he's available, then
his injury is long.
Yeah,
term,
I know.
think,
but
though.
I'm saying if he was
I think
available,
he had skin removed from his
Yeah,
ankle to
yeah,
save his
tattoo,
right
part
leg
of
or
his
something
tattoo.
like that.
it's
So
mad.
anyway, I hope Santi does get well soon, because I do rate Santi quite
Love
highly,
him.
and I think he would definitely bring at least something to the Arsenal midfield. If not, well, anyway.
Well, that was the last question. So I think there's only one thing left to do, and that's the football funny, which we like to end the show on.
Yes, thank you all for your questions. Before we get on to the football funny, we probably will introduce this again last week, so if you do, we'll send out a tweet asking for your questions at IOTP blog on Twitter.
Spit it out.
I'm sure we have a soundboard clip for football funnies as well.
Oh God,
we have to.
This is going to be awful.
Football funny.
There we go.
And there's a little laugh track as well. Great, thanks, lads.
We're expecting big things. No
Don't.
pressure.
Professionalism.
Yeah, but yeah, thank you for your questions, and hopefully you can contribute next week, because the topics sometimes are a bit dry. So this week comes from the height of football, which is Argentina's lower tiers. Deportivo Mardinha de Posta
Come on.
Los Libres. That was just one team. They were playing Toro Federal de Mercedes. I can say Mercedes. I butchered that, absolutely. But I can say this guy's name. One of the subs, Elroy, received a yellow card for entering the field of play prematurely as he was being subbed on. So shout out to Jesse Lingard,
Yeah.
taking one out of his book. Hopefully he plays better than him.
Best number 10 in the league, mate. Don't know what you're talking about.
I'm triggered. But yeah, so he was yellow carded for entering the field of play prematurely. 1 second after his name was called. He then called the referee a bad name, presumably in Spanish or Argentinian. I can't pronounce
Which
that.
Bev is going to say for us now,
Spanish or
considering he's pronounced it so well.
I swear they speak Portuguese in Argentina.
No, that's Brazil.
Okay,
Brazil.
okay.
Oh,
Please don't fact
We're
check.
taking,
me on
we're
what-
taking a
checking
geography
on that,
check.
sorry.
fact checking the
I
football.
I know they
funny.
speak Welsh in Patagonia. Shout out
Oh,
Patagonia.
so it's probably in Welsh.
Which you probably couldn't say either, Bev. Let's be
Okay, it was Spanish, but it wasn't Argentinian.
There.
There we go.
So yeah, he called the referee a bad name, and then received a second yellow card 6 seconds after he got his first. So 7 seconds after he came on, he was sent off.
Oh, incredible.
I want to know, there is definitely no red card that was quicker than that in professional football.
7 seconds. That'll be impressive.
So I want to know that if you know it. That was a football funny. It was a massive anticlimax. Thank you very much for listening. Follow us all on Twitter at DanBevJourno.
At @Ardors_.
At Liam is a journo.
Liam didn't really seem prepared for that one. I was so
Sorry,
good.
I was on my own.
And thank you very much. Follow the official at IOTP blog to get your questions in for next week. We'll put a tweet out.
And I know some of you have probably missed the top 5 this week. We will be back next week with the top 5 with our top 5 players under 21 in the Premier League. Make sure you stay tuned for that. It'll be
Absolutely.
an interesting debate.
And I think next week we might be looking at the other leagues potentially. So if you could sort
Yeah.
of centralise your questions around them, that would be
Yeah,
quite good.
because
Yeah,
there's no
international
Premier
break.
League.
Obviously, we'll provide a little review and
Of all the other
overview of all
leagues.
the other leagues, which would be fun. Also, shout out to our boy Donald for the new and improved intro for the In Off the Post podcast. Make sure you follow him on SoundCloud. We'll provide links and stuff in the description of this podcast. Make
and
sure
we
you check
follow
him
him
out.
as well. So if you
Yep.
click the people who we follow, you'll be able to find him. He does amazing music at the moment. He released a track with a rapper from Norway really recently. I think it was last week. And
Yeah.
it's really
It's really good. Make sure you check out his music and stuff like that. Big thanks to Donald. He's hooked us up big time.
Absolutely. And follow him on Twitter because we linked him on one of our tweets. Anyway, this outro has gone on for way too long. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. We'll catch you next week.
Nice one.
Bye.
Bye.